Hi, and welcome to Real Trail Talk. I'm Donovan D'Souza from The Long Ways Better.
And I'm Mark Pybus from The Life of Pi. Welcome to episode 27. We have one of the greatest parks to talk about in this episode, and we're going to divide it up into two podcasts. So stay tuned for part 2 coming in a couple of weeks. But for part 1, it is Fitzgerald River National Park, but the eastern side. So joining us today is Dr. Erika Jacobson. Welcome, Erika.
Hi.
So
great to be back.
Yeah, so we had you on for the Cape to Cape episode a few episodes back, and we loved you so much that we brought you back because this is also one of your favourite areas to take people and explore.
Oh, it sure is. It's amazing. It's amazing. Jaw-dropping, mind-boggling, incredible beauty.
And the weird thing is when you mention Fitzgerald River to people, they normally give you a blank look like, where's that? What's that close to?
Or, where is it? Yeah. I heard of it, but yeah.
And then you say it's in between Albany and Esperance. Like, oh, well, that sounds far away.
Definitely. I mean, I've not been to the eastern part of the park, but the one trip I went to the west side, and immediately I said, this is one of my top 10 in the country. And I mean, I think it's as good a park as somewhere like Lamington National Park or Kosciuszko National Park or Cradle Mountain National Park, in that what it gives of what it has is unbeatable. You know, and when you're talking about biodiversity, when you see Fitzgerald River, there's nothing else like it in the world, I don't think. Well, not that I've seen.
So, Erika, you might be able to clarify this, but how many different plant species does Fitzgerald River actually hold?
Okay, so I'm going to preface that with, I don't know anything, okay? But what I don't know anything. I just love everything. Yeah. But I do know that the park contains about 20% of WA's plant species, and that within the park, because of its isolation while it was evolving, many of the species were able to even hybridize, between each other. And, there are things like quailot bells, the Barron's regalia, the royal hakea, and lots of the claw flowers, that they only exist. They only grow there naturally. I think they grow them in other parts now, but, they only grow there naturally. And they're so beautiful to see when you walk around and suddenly go, oh my gosh, is that real?
Yeah, certainly driving
They're so
in.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the royal hakea was one thing that you look at and you're like, wow, that is unique.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like an icon of the park.
Yeah.
You show someone that, they know that's Fitzgerald River.
And it's interesting, I did hear this, and listeners might be able to go and find the details from the Radio National show that I heard it on, but when the botanists discovered down there, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable, a lot of them try to take some species out and plant them, and replant them and grow them. And they found with the royal hakea, anyway, this is the story I heard, is that they couldn't get it to come up with all those different colors because it's the actual, the poor nutrient soil that gives it that color. And I love that analogy because I think the beauty
I have to remember
in people is from the suffering, the struggles we have, what distinguishes us from others and gives us our unique beauty. And I think that's what's really special about that park. All those species are unique survivors of millions of years of evolution. And that is, a miracle to witness. And I love that.
To remember that, because we found, we really wanted to get an example to take home, but obviously you can't take them from the park because that's illegal. So we actually found a nursery in Esperance, and the lady had this huge collection of native plants, and we was like, do you happen to have a royal hakea? And she poked her head over the fence, and there's one just growing there, and she had a little one. So I've got one in my backyard, and it's green at the moment, and we really want the colours, but as you say, I might have to treat it really poor.
Got to get crappier soil.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you go to the park because it's actually palpable just how many different species there are. You walk and you're like, haven't seen this today, haven't seen this, oh, this is new. And you don't get that anywhere else, even though people talk about Stirling Range and Lesieux National Park being as good, I don't think they are as good. I think that while the wildflowers can be as beautiful in those parks, the fact that you just keep seeing new things in Fitzgerald is at a level that is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to see the wildflowers is, of course, by walking.
Of course.
We are
Get right up close and personal. You know.
We are a hiking podcast here, a trail podcast. So we'll talk about some of the hikes that are in the area, because it is split into the park, and there is no hike straight through, as we discussed with Rodanier. So we've got there's a good range of day hikes. There's not very many, but East Mount Barren kind of has to take the cake on this one, doesn't it?
Oh, it's
one of the premier day hikes in the park.
Yeah. I mean, it's only a, it's there and back. It's,
3 Ks.
That's right. It's only about 3K. So when you go up, I mean, it's quite steep. It's quite rugged. It's a level 4, I think, category 4 hike. But you can take your time, and when you get to the top, the view, you get the Cullum Inlet.
Yeah.
On the east, you get the Air Range?
The Air Range,
on the north, and then you get the West Barrens on the mid and West Barren on the west, and it's just beautiful. And all the way up there, you see, well, in summer anyway, when they're flowering, the Barren's regalia, the nice red, big, tall, lanky with their bright red flowers. Yeah.
And it's such like a varied hike, because you kind of go up in little sections, and you're like, the first section you're looking back to the mid Barrens and the West Barrens, and then all of a sudden you go over like a little rocky ledge and you're looking towards the ocean more, and then the little walk through the kind of the scrub there. It's just amazing. And then the last little bit up to the summit is quite fun.
I love scrambling
like
up that
rock scramble. I had the Google Trekker backpack, so I had 18 kilos of camera on my back, and trying to get up that narrow little ledge and you just hear this like donk donk you're like, oh, probably should duck a little bit more. But as you say, the views from the summit are just epic. And best experience at sunset, I found.
One of the things that I found really interesting, having not done it, but having looked at a lot of the photos and having explored other parts of the park, is that not just is the wildflowers an attraction, but the geology of the place is very different from the rest of the southwest. In terms of, instead of the rounded granite, you've got the spiky sort of rock. Can you tell us a bit about, like, how do you describe that, Mark? Like, because it's quite spiky on East Mount Barren, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like Planet of the Apes, like where you see, or like even Star Wars, where you see a starship that's been crashed into a desert, and there's just these like spiky bits coming up. But that was one of the things when you posted about the Mamang Trail, and you've got the black ones on the beach, and I was just like, I have to go visit this place, because you don't get that. It's just like it's rugged. That's probably the definition of the word. Is and you've got all these weird angles, and they point off, and if you can get it right, you get the clouds matching up, or it points out to the ocean. It's very photogenic, the area, and especially East Mount Barren, because you've got so many different things to look at and feature points in the background. So and
it's easy to get to as well. It's accessible for people, can drive up to it and then do the hike and come back down to their cars just on the after, what is it, Hammersley Drive?
Hammersley Drive, and don't believe your eyes on Google Street View, because I had a look at the other day, and it's still a gravel road on Google Street View. So it has been paved. There's quite a bit of money being pumped into the park to try and boost the tourism. So it is accessible by two-wheel drive quite easily.
So what about, you were talking before about No Tree Hill.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So
this is
I never got there. So
it's kind of a bit of an awkward one to get to. So it's not through the main entrance on the eastern side. You have to come in from the north, and it is a full drive track only for the last 4 or 5 Ks. It's just really sandy. And the feature of No Tree Hill, apart from there being no trees on the hill that you finish on, is surprising. They actually named it correctly. Is actually the Weeping Gums, and you do get them on Sepulchreous Hill, but they are even more epic on No Tree Hill. So they're kind of, imagine a flat plain of the Royal Hakea, just windswept like landscape, and then you come to these skinny like almost gums, and they look like someone's just put a flag or a spear in the ground, and that is the story of the weeping gum. Is there was a guy who stole another tribe's wife, and they chased him and at Sepulchre's Hill, and they speared him, and the weeping gums are the spears waving in the air.
So yeah, eucalyptus sepulchres.
Yeah, they are. It's just one of those things like you just walk through, and then all of a sudden there's just these like just airy plants. It's amazing. But yeah, it's 6K's return. I recommend taking a hat and lots of sunscreen because it is quite open and exposed. But definitely, if you've got a full drive one to check out.
Yeah. And also, I think it's interesting to know, because I didn't think when I went, it was literally the end of December, and I thought, all the wildflowers are gone and I'm not going to catch very much. But there were so many wildflowers still at the end of December, lots of banksias, there were trigger plants, lots of grevilleas. It was still really, really, there were still so many plants, so many flowers out. Yeah.
I find sometimes on the south coast it does peak in December. Like it can get to its best point there because you start to get the stuff that in summer comes out, like Christmas trees, and that's something that is interesting in the south, that particular area.
That's beautiful. Actually, that's really Nutsia floribunda. That's beautiful. They have. That's another plant that was out. Yeah, lots of them. Just
Yeah, I feel like the southwest is a bit more blessed with the wildflowers because you get stages.
Yes.
Whereas Perth, it's the rains come, you get spring, and then they kind of all die off.
Yeah, like by November, it's kind of not great anymore.
Yeah. Whereas, the southwest, you kind of get a good spread, and you can go almost any time of year and get. Erika's filming us at the moment. We're not used to having the camera in our face. But yeah, that brings us on to the multi-day hike, and I would have to say one of the best hikes I've ever done, probably the best hike I've ever done, in the Hakea Trail.
I guess we should maybe talk a bit about what it was going to be. So it was going to be a true multi-day. It was going to be a 7-day hike from Ravensthorpe to Hopetoun. However, due to the extreme biodiversity, they had to cut it back. So the EPA knocked it back, and they said, well, no, you can't go through the middle of the wilderness section of the park that's in the mid Mount Barrens. So as a result, we now have 2 shorter trails. It is possible to walk through the park, but it's significantly more arduous than it would have been if it's a trail because there's no facilities. And really, the Hakea Trail, I guess, is a good way of seeing what could have been had there not been, the need to protect the biodiversity there.
I actually think it's kind of like in a good way that the mid-barrens are kept separate because they're a feature no matter which side of the park you're on, and you look at them and just knowing that you can't get to them, it's kind of like that's pristine wilderness just being kept like that. And even if you do the whole way navigating yourself, you are not allowed. I think it's above the 150 elevation marker.
That's correct, yeah.
So even if you wanted to, it's severely frowned upon, and I would hate to see anyone try and break that just because they could. Yeah, the Hakea Trail. I know you've spent many, many a days on the Hakea Trail.
I haven't spent that many days, actually. I went down, I think it was the 30th of December last year, or the 29th or something. And I came down, did a couple of hikes, and then decided to go off, park the car at Hammersley Inlet, walked up to Whalebone Beach, which is maybe, is it 6 or 9 Ks? I think 9 Ks. 6 Ks from Hammersley.
Oh, from Hammersley.
I think it's 9 from Hammersley.
Yeah.
And then camped New Year's Eve on the beach.
Yeah.
There was nobody there. It's a world-class hut, hiker's hut. It really is it's so well serviced there. There's toilets, there's water, and yeah, I think it's a great facility. But because there was no one there and the beach was gorgeous, my friend and I, we just camped on the beach. So we spent New Year's Eve camped on Whalebone Beach, which was a really great way to see the new year in.
Yeah.
And then we walked the next day, return to Coin Head and back. And that was beautiful. I mean, all the flower up there, lots of trigger plants. So a lot of beautiful plants up there. And that rugged coastal shore. It's just, you can imagine pirates, going into those coves and those heads, and
there would have been whalers back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it is, especially Coin Head, because that's where the trail officially starts or ends, depending on which way you go. It is one of the most breathtaking views of the park, because you've got like the little inlet and the bay that's really long and really hard to capture in one photo, as I found out. And the ranger was saying that that's one of the most pristine beaches on the coast. Yeah. But just amazing. And as you said, Whalebone campsite, which is only 6 k's from Coin Head, it's Mundabiddy quality. And it's such a shame that the brochure only says limited facilities.
Yeah, because it's pretty...
Yeah, and if you knew there was water there and really good sleeping huts, tables and a deck, I think more people would visit.
Definitely.
Now, when you say Mundabiddy, it is actually Mundabiddy hut, isn't it?
Yes.
Basically.
So, unlike the Billman, which is all exposed, these ones, it's a 4-sided shelter and it's got a little gap or hallway in the middle, and then the sleeping bunks are either side of that, but they're all enclosed.
Yep. And it's got a beautiful veranda just overlooking the sort of little gully in front of it.
Yeah.
And toilets, a big water tank.
2 water tanks.
2 water tanks, that's right. It's got 2 water tanks.
And they're always full. Even in the middle of summer, they're always full, because the ranger makes sure to get out there.
But that is accessible only by 4-wheel drive track. I mean, if you want to hike there, you can drive all the way when it's open, when the road's open, you can drive all the way to Coin Head. But it's a serious 4-wheel drive track with some sections, 30-40 meters in places where it's quite rocky, exposed rock, and it needs a skillful driver to do.
Yeah, and a serious machine as well. Even getting out to Coin Head is ridiculous. Like I thought, we'll be fine. But then the ranger had his boss's car that was a all-wheel drive 4-wheel drive Ranger, and even he was taking it slow, and you could see it just took a lot of time and effort to get there. Which is kind of funny, because the drive in on the sand, you think, this isn't too bad. And I think a lot of people might think, I'll be able to make this, and then get stuck.
Yeah. I think another thing that is important to note about the park is, due to the biodiversity and the fear of spreading dieback, that if it rains, they just close the park.
Yeah.
So it's not just difficult to get to in the sense of 4-wheel drive tracks, but sometimes they'll just go, no, we're not letting you into the park because it's raining today.
Yeah. But the advantage that the East has now is that it is paved all the way to Hammersley campsite. Tarmacked all the way to Hammersley campsite, so you can still do the Hakea Trail from Hammersley or the finish at Cave Point.
And you can walk. I mean, you can drive up there and then walk up to Coin Head. You can actually go that way. It's just if you want to drive all the way to Coin Head and walk back, which is what we're doing next week. So I was on the phone to Paul Coney. Is it Coney? One of the rangers.
Yeah.
They're so nice, those guys. They're
nice
so
guy.
Nice. They really know their stuff, And they're involved in a couple of 4-wheel drive during the Ravensthorpe Wildflower Show. They're going along and showing people through the park and... But he was saying that it's closed, but it's going to be open next week.
Because they're really good about the disease protection on their cars. They have all these wash down stations, and they're great. If you were going there to do the Hakea Trail, I would recommend starting at Cave Point. So you start in the paved section, and then you can walk all the way to Whalebone campsite in a day. That's 15 k's?
Yeah, something like that.
Yep. And then the next day, or even that day, drop your packs and walk to Coin Head, walk back, stay the night, and then come back the same way.
Yeah.
But just the coastline is just magnificent. Like, you're never short of views on this trail at all. And even the views that you don't expect. So there's a little section just after Whalebone where it takes you inland a little bit, and you're thinking, well, why are we going away from the coast? But then you get shots of the East Mount Barren and the Eyre Range, and it's the Mid Barrens, and it's the Warrup Range. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they're the range that you follow on the first section from Coin Head, and it's just epic, because it is just plains and grassland and raw hakeas all the way to the horizon, and just these little peaks in the distance. I love it.
Yeah.
And then kind of the beaches as well. Like, it's not as bad as the Cape to Cape, and probably a lot more enjoyable too.
Yeah.
And it has to be said, the sands there, you know, a lot of people talk about Lucky Bay, Lucky Bay, Lucky Bay, Lucky Bay, Lucky Bay.
Yeah.
But the sands there are just as white.
Yeah.
You know, it's that pure bleached white sand.
Yeah. And there's sections with lots of little tiny shells as well.
Yeah.
That was, I think that was sort of coming back towards Hammersley, close to Hammersley Inlet.
Yeah, you drop down onto that little bay, and then go along the rocks, and then you open up to Hammersley Inlet, which is quite large. So we didn't expect it to be as big as it is, and that's it's not a slog because you're surrounded by beautiful scenery. But it's just
there's none
amazing.
Of the 7K beaches.
Yeah, it's not deep
Cape
deep.
It's not deep deep.
You can see the end. It's manageable. And unlike the Cape to Cape, there's poles telling you where to exit and where you can go.
Actually, that's a really good point, and something to maybe, give feedback to the Cape to Cape.
I think the Fitzgerald River Trail, whoever designed it, was really clever. You know, I know that they probably felt a bit, they probably had ambitions for this great multi-day trail and they had to cut it back. But what they have produced, the quality of the signage, the quality of the information panels and everything is really at a standard that is world class, I think.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I think the Cape to Cape is a world class hike. And they've got a new logo now. But we're not talking about the Cape to Cape logo, sorry.
Fitzgerald. But I agree. Like, it is world class, and it is a shame that not many people know about it or even hike it. But it's amazing. And then like the final stretch down towards Cave Point, you get the beach, and then what's it called?
There's West Beach?
No.
And then
the chasm.
Oh, I don't know. Sorry.
The Zorn?
The Zorn, yes.
What was it called? The
Zorn, I think it is. It comes from a Celtic term.
Oh.
And it's just off trail, and you'd never know about it unless you looked at the sign. But it's like a little like chasm from the ocean into the rock, and that's where you climb up into I call them salmon gum mallee. But I don't think that's the proper name. Kind of just like salmon gums, but on a diet. And then
there's the diversity of eucalyptuses down there. I don't know if you say eucalyptus or eucalyptuses, but is also incredible. Yeah.
It's just an amazing part, and there's always like lookouts where they make you stop and appreciate the landscape, where you have a little sit. And the same thing on the Mamang Trail, which we'll talk about in the next pod, is there's points of interest that they make you stay there and appreciate, whereas sometimes if you walking on a trail, you might not know you've stopped somewhere or passed somewhere. No,
there's a few really well constructed platforms where you can sit and and have lunch or whatever, enjoy the view, and you're sort of off the sand, close to the edge of the cliffs. Yeah,
I felt it reminded me a lot of Peruna in terms of the quality of construction, which is at a standard that's above both the Bibbulmun and Cape to Cape in terms of like there's a lookout point and we'll build a seat and everything, and you do get them sometimes on the Bibbulmun and the Cape to Cape, but the amount of those that are on the Fitzgerald River trails is really high, and you don't see that very often anywhere in Australia.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's almost a blessing that mining kind of didn't take off in that area because they had to pump in money elsewhere, and we've got all these lovely trails.
Yeah, but they did. There is huge amount of mining.
I know, and it's just starting to pick up again.
It's huge. Lithium. It's.
Yeah.
Sorry, you don't have to record this, but
no, I mean I think it's a fair thing to say because it was. So the reason why there's all this money went into the park was that they're basically the economy had completely crashed for the local towns. And so they said, well, we'll pump all this money into tourism to make this great trail. And the idea was originally to have a road through the park, which is a terrible idea. But so they had all these trails, and then the mine kind of picked up again anyway. And it's kind of unfortunate because, this area is beautiful.
Yeah.
And what's a real shame is most people, like when we're staying in town, we'd heard stories that most people don't know the national park's there, even though they're 10 minutes away in Hopetown.
The locals?
No, the visitors coming into Hopetown. And because there's a tiny little sign, like an old orange sign that says Fitzgerald River National Park that way, and you have no idea, like the beauty and the quality of the park judged off that one sign.
Yeah.
And like they spent all this money and then they didn't follow up with any kind of marketing.
Well, maybe we talk about it and we let people know. And everybody lets other people know. And everybody listening out there, let people know to go down to the Fitzgerald River National Park. And the whole biosphere down there. It's not just the park, but also the Ravensthorpe Range and the Heritage Trail from Hopetoun up to Ravensthorpe. I mean, that's all biodiversity heaven.
Yeah.
You know, like I was just reading that out of the 15 biodiversity hotspots in Australia, 8 of them are in Western Australia, and the 2 of them are in the southwest. So it's you want to see biodiversity, get down there.
Yeah.
And it's almost in spite of not being advertised that the Ravensthorpe Wildflower Show attracts thousands of international visitors, not just a local thing, but people flying all over the world just to see this one time of year.
Oh, and they are, they're just amazing. I was down there last week and the hospitality, it's a community event. I mean, most of it is just volunteers that go out picking, volunteers that help man the stores, volunteers that create the big, beautiful wildflower chandeliers that they've got. I mean, seriously, it's beautiful. And then the experts, all the people, all the orchid experts, all the plant and wildlife down there, they're all in that area because they love it. And you know, people can go, no, that's not eucalyptus it's a eucalyptus subspecies because of blah, blah, blah. And they tell you everything, and it is fascinating. And I'm just in love with this place.
We had some friends of ours from Canberra who did the Bibbulmun track, Peter and Sonia, and they said to us when we were there, we were thinking of going to Fitzgerald, and they said, you'll be spoiled for life. Like, if you're talking about biodiversity, you know, in other states they have better mountains, they have better rainforests. You know, we have no rainforest here except for, you know, really far in the north. But if you're talking about wildflowers, WA is the best state for it, and this is the best place in the whole state for it. And, you know, you walk there and you will be spoiled for life. Seriously.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, like the best way is to get out and walk. Even if you just went to the local campsites, like you just wander around and there's wildflowers and just the drive. It's just, so underrated. It's almost criminal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when we talk about the east side and the west side, my favorite beach in all of Australia is there. And yet you can have it to yourself. That's amazing to me.
Did you camp?
No, because I had the Google tracker, we had to do it in one day.
Oh, yeah.
So that was an effort which we didn't quite get. We finished in the dark almost. But yeah, I really want to return in spring and camp. Because I saw your logbook entry at Whalebone, but you could actually count how many visitors
people,
per month, and it was like 10 or 12, which is
crazy.
Ridiculous.
For such a facility, it's crazy. But the campground, the other one I camped at was at 4 Mile Beach.
Yeah.
And I think I counted 13 spots. Maybe 13 spots there.
I think it was even more because I went
and
over
then
Easter.
Some double ones as well.
Yeah, so I went over Easter the first time, and then I went back with the Google trip. So we stayed at 4 Mile Beach as well.
Yeah.
And in terms of campsites, you've got a little ring road thing that goes around, but then you have to wander 20, 30 meters through the scrub, and then you've got your own little private campsite, and there's barbecues and picnic tables, drop toilets.
Yeah.
It's in terms of money that they've put in, it's quite well looked after.
Yeah, very well looked after, and safe, and it's
and the beaches nearby are great as well.
Right there, yeah.
You actually get to see the base of East Mount Barren, and you can look up and see from the beach the peak of East Mount Barren, and I can go hike that, and then you do.
I think, just to let people know, how long does it take to get to the east side of the park? Because that's, I guess, one of the difficulties about the east side of Fitzgerald River National Park is that it is quite a fair drive. So that's probably what has kept it so pristine, but it's also what's kept it probably less visited than it should be. So how long does it take to actually get there?
It took me 6 hours.
From Perth?
From Freo.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 hours. And I went quite slowly. I kind of wanted to go the Brookton Highway this time, because last time I went, on the other one.
Albany.
Yeah, the Albany Highway that goes through Williams and stuff. But this time I went through Hayden and Ravensthorpe, and it's really pretty, and there's a lot of wildflowers along those roads as well. You know, really, really pretty, and canola fields and all of that. You know, so all the way down, you know, it's really quite picturesque. But it took me 6 hours.
Yeah. I think it's a great addition if you're thinking about going to Esperance. Is either you can go either way, but going down to Fitzgerald River National Park first or on your way home is a good way to break up the trip, and you get to see a world-class national park, which is what we did. I think if you're just going to Esperance and driving the 8.5 hours, I think you're missing out if you don't stop in at Fitzgerald River.
So the question I have for you, Mark, is, okay, you've been to Cape Legrand National Park and you've been to Fitzgerald River.
Yeah.
Which is better? And is Lucky Bay not the best beach, or is it worthy of its praise?
It's worthy of its praise. I feel like if the kangaroos weren't on the beach, it wouldn't be as well known. I think that's probably what tips it over the edge, especially with the Instagram generation that we're in. But Fitzgerald River just walks all over it. Not actually, I say that incorrectly. It doesn't walk all over it because like Thistle Bay in Cape Legrand is amazing. Same with Hellfire and Lucky Bay as well. But Fitzgerald River just doesn't have the amount of people visiting it, purely because it is so far away from a major town. And I think that isolation gives it the edge. And we'll talk about your favourite beach in the next podcast. But I think that is one of the biggest factors, is the isolation.
Yep, for sure.
I'm not sure if it's useful to go, you know, like this is the best and this is better than that one, or, you know, because it's what people, you know, it's what you love. But I think it is up there with one of the places that has most inspired me and just filled me with awe and joy to be in nature, and the sort of delight at seeing the shape and the color of flower that I've never ever seen before, or you've never imagined existed, and then oh wow, oh my gosh, and another one, and then so many things that hit you that are just so pleasing to the senses, you know.
I guess that's why you keep returning.
I know.
And,
do you know what? I went down there and straight away, I went down there and straight away I came back to Perth beginning of the year, and I went, right, I'm going to organize a walk down there. And I straight away put together a kind of quasi plan and advertised it, and this is what we're doing next week. You know, it was on a whim. It was like, I must do it. So anyway.
And you were very lucky to be able to do that as a job.
Yeah. I feel great sadness for not being able to go back. Like, it's something, I haven't been there for 2 years. Last time I was there was 2016.
Really?
And I'm just like, I want to go. But, you know, there's just so many other things and life gets in the way. And it's a bit further than doing some other stuff. But I'll get back there.
Yeah.
It's one of those places you have to spend at least, if you're doing the longer trails, at least a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I was happy when the Google thing came up. I was like, yes, because I wasn't going to be able to do the Mamang or the Hakea Trail for at least a year and a half or 2 years. So that's, I was like, jumped on board, like, I'll get these trails in.
Yeah.
So I guess we kind of, like, to wrap up the podcast, we may as well talk about the closest town, which is Hopeton. Beautiful little community. That's where we stayed while we were based in the park for the Google trip. Like, it's got a great pub as well, which you'd kind of expect that's like the cornerstone of a good country town. But the beach along there as well is, you know, equal to whatever you find in Fitzgerald River, and you get the views back to West Mount Barren as well, around the bay. It is, it became, you know, one of my favourite country towns while I was staying there.
Yeah,
It's nice.
yeah. That's where, so Tim Flanagan, if he ever listens to this podcast, he is the person that got me interested to go down there. When he came walking with us on the Cape to Cape, he said, you've got to go down. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Da, da, da. And so I just said, yeah, okay. And and so him and his wife lived down there. He was a retired farmer. Lots of retired farmers, I think, in the community, and younger families. But yeah, very, I think, quite close-knit community. And and everybody, it seems to me from the few people I've met, that everybody seems to pull together, and you know, especially for community events like the Wildflower Show and so on. Yeah.
And I guess there is a strong appreciation in the town for how amazing their national park is.
Yeah, I think so. Everyone there, even when they, you know, when I didn't know somebody and I wasn't introduced to someone by someone else from there, people were always friendly, really helpful, out of their way to make sure I understood the directions. And very good.
Yeah, even when we're there and we're having dinner at the pub, and you know, a guy would come up and he'd be asking, "Oh, how are you guys? I haven't seen you guys around, and or you guys have been here every night for you know, what's your story, and you know, what are you doing here?" And you explain, they're like, "Oh, cool," and they always want to tell you more about, you know, you should go see this and go see this, and it's good community spirit they've got there. I guess on that note, we'll wrap things up.
Yep. So thank you everyone for listening. That was the east side of Fitzgerald River National Park, and we'll be back with the west side in our next episode.
West side represent.
Yeah. And if anyone has any questions or any suggestions for us, please email us at realtrailtalk@gmail.com. And if you want to rate the pod on iTunes, that would be great.
Just 5 stars, please.
Yes. Let us know that you're enjoying the show, and thank you.
Thanks, guys.